Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandy Abbas, and I am a real estate agent working at SERHANT on the Sara Golan team. Thank you so much for being with us today. SERHANT, we're the most followed brand in the entire world. We're up to 8 million followers, and the Sara Golan team has closed close to $1 billion. So I want to share that for one reason, perspective. So we're involved in real estate transactions every day. We're working with buyers, lenders, attorneys, and architects. So we see this in real life. Buyers who are informed and prepared are buying well. They're negotiating smarter and getting into homes by acting strategically. For the next hour, I'm going to be your moderator, and we have an award-winning real estate experts that you're going to be meeting who actively, I work with them, Sara Golan Team works with them. We're all involved in real estate transactions together to support our clients. So this is the power team, okay? So at the Sara Golan Team, we believe in a holistic approach, bringing the right experts together so every part of the process is handled strategically. So tonight we're going to cover how buyers are lowering their monthly payments, how buyers are reducing closing costs, and how buyers are winning a bidding war or completely avoiding one altogether. Because bidding wars are back, guys. It's kind of crazy. Last month, Roger, I was telling you how, buyers were getting a lot of, price reductions. And now this month, it's like the market has picked up and now we're getting into bidding wars again. So, and we have other special stuff to go over with you as well. So we're gonna kick it off with Roger, our mortgage banker from US Bank. I've known Roger for a long time. I love working with Roger because number one, he has one of the lowest rates in all of the US. And I know that because I was in the mortgage business for 10 years before I became a real estate agent. So I'm very comfortable and I'm very well connected with a lot of different mortgage companies. So Roger just has such amazing programs, which you're going to learn about. So Roger, your first question that I have for you is, can you share a recent buyer who felt stuck and the financing strategy that helped them move forward?
Absolutely. First, let me start by thanking you, Sandy. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to the panelists for carving out some time tonight to share your knowledge. I feel like information, it changes by the day. So being able to share these insights, share past experiences with current and future clients is invaluable. So a forum like this is great to be a part of. In terms of the question, which gets asked very often, I think of a couple of scenarios that come up time and time again with prospective buyers, whether they're first-time home buyers or purchasing their second or third homes. The first is when you're thinking of qualifying, banks look at what I call the 4 C's of underwriting, or the 4 pillars of financing. The first is cash, the second is collateral, the third is credit, and the fourth is capacity, or your income, your ability to pay the loan back. And what it all boils down to is a simple math equation, which is monthly debt divided by monthly income, which gives the bank a percentage or a ratio, which for mortgage purposes, we call it a debt to income ratio, or DTI for short. The majority of US bank products, and for the most part, all banks, cap their DTI requirements at roughly anywhere between 42 and 45%. So simply stated, your monthly income needs to cover or not exceed, your monthly debt cannot exceed 45% of your monthly income in order to qualify for financing. So DTI restrictions come up almost on every file. So being able to think about your income as it relates to your debt is a big part, if not the biggest part of the qualifying equation. So oftentimes I have borrowers that are near or exceed that 45% debt to income ratio cap. So something that I always recommend, especially for first-time home buyers, right? The first purchase might not be your forever home. So a good way to think about thinking outside the box, I guess, so to speak, is perhaps purchasing a multifamily property as a first-time home buyer, or a 2-unit property if this is your second home. And what sometimes is overlooked is that banks permit for proposed rental income to be utilized to qualify for a mortgage. So in instances where your debt to income ratio could be near that threshold of 43, 44, 45, even 50%, what we can do and what banks permit is that you can rent out one of your units if you're buying a 2-family property, and we can use that rental income to help increase your qualifying income in order to get that debt to income ratio down. So obviously this doesn't work for every property, the multifamily property, but one thing that also gets overlooked is that, at least from a US bank perspective, we allow for what's called border income, where even if it's a single family or a 1-unit residence, if you're going to allow for someone to live in one of your bedrooms and charge them rent, whether it's a multifamily or not, we can utilize that proposed rental income to help you qualify. So it's a different way of thinking about purchasing either a multifamily or even renting out a room to help you gain income from that unit in order to bring you or under that debt to income ratio requirement to qualify. Part of that logic allows for an FHA product, Federal Housing Administration, which is mostly used for multifamily properties. But you can take that rental income to help you qualify. You can purchase the home. You only need to live in the home for 1 year before you can sell that home or rent it out as an investment property, thus allowing you to utilize that rental income now for a future purchase as well to help you qualify for that quote unquote forever home. Another scenario that comes up all the time, and it's definitely relevant to the time of the year that we're at, and that's for self-employed borrowers. What is good for IRS tax mitigation is terrible for mortgage qualification. So I often encounter self-employed borrowers that, just for rough numbers, make 500,000 or a million a year in gross profit, but they write off the majority of that income in their expenses. And the borrowers think that they're making a million or 500,000 a year, but to the bank, they're looking at what you claim to the IRS. So that net profit number is what the bank utilizes to qualify. So we're at the time of the year where if you are self-employed, you can talk to your CPA before you file your 2025 tax returns. Banks look at the last 2 years of federal tax returns for self-employed borrowers, and they utilize a 24-month average. So if you're self-employed, you're in a position right now to essentially show more income on your tax returns to help you qualify if you're purchasing this year, and then go back to writing off as much as you want in the year ahead to go back to what you're used to as far as your tax implications go. So it's a great conversation to have with your CPA if you're self-employed. I encounter it all the time with real estate agents, business owners, and frankly, something that I think many CPAs don't know about, just because they're looking to do what's best for their client and from an IRS standpoint, but it isn't what's best when it comes to mortgage qualification. So those are probably the two biggest challenges that I overcome on a daily basis, whether it's thinking outside the box to get your debt to income ratio under the threshold to qualify, or whether you're self-employed to help you show more income as it relates to how underwriters look at your credit profile to help you qualify as well.
Thank you, Roger. So the next question actually is a real life example. I have a client, I've done maybe 4 transactions with her already, and she wanted to buy another property, not in New York. So I referred her to another agent from another state to help them. But her focus was finding the lowest rate. And I was like, you have to go to Roger, because she was working with M&T. I was like, no, go to Roger. So Roger, how did you save the day? And it's not only rate, right? With this product that you were telling me about is really cool.
Spot on. Psychologically, everyone wants the lowest rate possible, understandably, right? But oftentimes, the lowest rate doesn't mean the lowest monthly payment. So in this particular example, Sandy, like we discussed, M&T, in full transparency, was actually offering a more competitive rate, and largely in part because they locked the rate before the weekend of the Greenland tariff news. And then they came back to me the week after, where rates had moved up on fears of the Sell America narrative. So rates had spiked. So I couldn't offer a lower rate as a result of that market movement over the course of 3 or 4 days. And they locked a rate that had mortgage insurance associated with their monthly payment. And for those of you that don't know, mortgage insurance is essentially an additional monthly payment that is made by the borrower to protect the bank against their potential default on the mortgage. So if you know that you're going to be paying your mortgage on time, and in this scenario, if you're making less than a 20% down payment, the majority of banks will force place mortgage insurance on your mortgage. So what we have is a product where it's lender paid mortgage insurance. So the borrower doesn't have to make that monthly payment. And in the example that you mentioned, Sandy, that monthly payment was over $200 just for mortgage insurance. So what we did is we took our their borrower paid insurance option and compared it to our lender paid insurance option, where even though our rate was 0.25% higher, their monthly payment was lower by almost $7,500. So instead of them wasting $200+ a month on mortgage insurance, our payment was lower, doesn't have the mortgage insurance associated with it. So it allows them to actually chip away at the principal balance at a marginally faster rate, even though the rate is higher. So they're gaining equity in the home faster, and it allows them to put more money toward the principal balance as a result, and still give them the opportunity to refinance in 2, 3, 5 years after the market normalizes. So a perfect example of the rate being marginally higher, but the lack of mortgage insurance allows them for a lower monthly payment, put more money in their pocket for other monthly expenses or other investments, and still get the home that they want. So that's a great product that we utilize all the time. Lender paid mortgage insurance for any down payments under 20%. We can do a 10% down payment up to $1 million, 15% down payment up to 1.5 million. So it's a product that frankly I don't I don't think I do enough of, even though there's a lot of people out there that can't afford a 20% down payment at the moment. So something to think about if you're in the market. If you only have 5 or 10% to put down, you don't have to pay mortgage insurance, even though that's a common misconception in the market, and a great conversation to have with me if you're in that boat.
Thank you, Roger. Mhm.
Thanks, Andy.
Mhm. So, Roger, what advantage can buyers gain by acting now instead of waiting until the rates get lowered?
You know, I think something that the media does a good job of, erroneously, in my opinion, is that when the Fed cuts rates, they are selling the fact that mortgage rates come down as well. And that is not the case. Mortgage rates are more closely tied to the 10-year treasury. So if you look back on a chart of the 10-year treasury and compare it to when the Fed cut rates, you'll actually see that more often than not, at least the last 3 times that the Fed has cut rates, mortgage rates have ticked up after the Fed has cut the prime rate. So that's the first thing to think about, right? Just because we're supposed to be in a decreasing rate environment doesn't mean that we're in a decreasing mortgage rate environment. And over the course of the last few weeks, what we're seeing, at least what our economists are telling us, is that we might not see mortgage rates come down much more. So if you're on the fence thinking that mortgage rates are coming down, it's very possible that they don't move much lower. So playing that waiting game could be detrimental, to say the least, where instead of purchasing today, gaining a home, right, gaining equity and letting that appreciation occur over the course of the next 1, 3, 5 years is a huge advantage because you can always refinance if rates come down, but you might never see that home that you fell in love with ever again. So I think that's an important thing to think about, right? Don't sit on the fences right now. Go out and shop, get pre-approved, make sure that you can qualify. If you can't, I will give you the roadmap to qualification. I always say it's not if, it's when and how. So think about your scenario. Think about if you're sitting on the fence. Don't wait much longer, if at all, if you can make that move today, because you're missing out on appreciation, which is essentially the creation of wealth in your family, because you have that misconception of what the media is telling you about the Fed cutting rates, which means mortgage rates are coming down, which is not the case. There's a big narrative now that's gaining steam, unfortunately, which is that sell America narrative as a result of these Greenland tariffs and the policies that the administration is enforcing. And more recently, Greenland in general, right? There's been news that there's Danish pension funds that are going to start selling U.S. mortgage bonds. And then we have the issues in Japan with the Japan cash and carry trade. And Japan is raising rates for the first time in over 30, 40 years, meaning that there are other countries that are selling U.S. bonds, 10-year treasuries, which is what the mortgage rates are tied to. And when bonds are sold, prices come down on the bonds, and it's an inverse relationship. When prices come down on bonds, yields go up, which means that mortgage rates go up. So if the US continues down this path of isolating itself, that actually could be a negative impact to mortgage rates, which is why some folks, some economists believe that rates might not come down anytime soon. So don't sit on the fence. If you can afford it, or even if you think you can't, have a conversation with a mortgage banker, figure out your best path forward for your individual scenario. Don't believe the media hype because oftentimes they're wrong. So that's what I would say to that question.
Thank you. I agree with you, Roger. I always say be prepared. So like some buyers are like, oh, my credit is not good yet. And I'm like, okay, but did you know I was the vice president of a credit building and restoration company in my past life? So I actually helped them. Some can't get approved with the mortgage pre-approval. And I've helped them actually fix their credit, rescore, and then they were able to get a mortgage pre-approval. So just ask for a consultation. It doesn't hurt to just get informed and see what your path is to get you to home ownership. Everyone's path is different. And I think us on here, like as real estate experts, that's why we're here to help guide the client to get them there.
Absolutely. You have to take
Yeah.
that first leap of faith, have the conversations, get your roadmap,
Yeah.
whether it's
Everybody's roadmap is different, but you have
exact
to work with a team of experts to get you to the finish line. So
precisely.
thank you. Thank you. All right. Talia from Tab Law Firm. She actually is a superstar award winner in New York City. I had to say it, Talia.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My small claim to fame, but yeah, Sarah was with me that night too, so she also got honored. But yes, thank you everyone so much for having me here this evening, and I think it's wonderful to present education and add value to first-time home buyers because we are all here as the power team, like you said, Sandy, to facilitate growth and wealth and legacies. So whatever I can do to assist in that process, I am all for it.
Thank you. All right. So your first question, tell us about a real estate transaction where the contract protected the buyer or created leverage.
Sure. So, two things that I'll say on this. One, like Sandy mentioned earlier, we are actually back in a competitive market. The reason being is inventory is low, so we do have bidding wars and multiple offers. I actually had a deal today where I'm representing a seller of a co-op in Brooklyn, and there were 7 offers that came through. So what I try and do for my buyers is protect them by negotiating certain provisions that allow them to still win out on the deal, but still have protection. For example, some sellers might have an all cash offer, but then another offer from a second buyer who is getting financing at a higher price. If you are that buyer that needs to obtain financing, but you are coming in as a higher price, more than likely the seller will ask you to waive the mortgage contingency. What this means is that, you are confident after, speaking with Roger, and you're confident that you can get approved for the loan. Some lenders will actually fully underwrite the loan in advance anyway. And the only, way that could possibly not close is if the lender cannot approve the building, let's say a co-op or condo building. So what I negotiate is what we call a funding contingency. This protects the buyer and their 10% deposit so that if they are approved for the loan, but the building isn't, let's say for maybe reserves or some sort of, safety violation from local law 11 or any, high investor concentration count, whatever it may be, and the lender is unable to fund or approve the building, then we have a right to cancel and get back our full deposit. So this is what we call a funding contingency, and it's something that I try and negotiate for those buyers when it's not within their control. The second thing that I have negotiated in legal contracts is the appraisal contingency. So similar in nature. However, this means that the buyer is willing to proceed, at the full purchase price, so long as the appraisal, which is the valuation of the property, comes back at a certain threshold. So let's just say we're in contract for $1 million. And let's say the comps might possibly only support a value of $975. Well, the buyer says, okay, look, I'm happy to proceed at the full purchase price of $1 million, so long as the appraised value comes in at 975 or above. But if it comes in lower, I'm not willing to cover any additional difference or gap out of pocket. So this is called an appraisal contingency threshold because the lender will only lend up to the appraised value, regardless of what the purchase price on the contract states. So in this case, in the event the appraisal comes in at 975 or higher, the buyer will move forward at the full purchase price of $1 million. But in the event it comes in at 974 or lower, then the parties agree to renegotiate the price, or either party may cancel, in which case the buyer gets back their full deposit. So the buyer is still protected. They're still willing to waive the mortgage contingency, but they want to be protected when it comes to value because maybe there is not, sufficient supportive comps, or it might be a little shaky, or they're coming in higher, due to a multiple bid offer. So those are the two protections or legal negotiations that I will include in a contract to protect my buyers.
Thank you. Last question. Give us one early contract decision that made a difference later in the deal.
Sure. So I would say this comes down to a home inspection. All right. And the reason why I say this, and I'm sure you'll hear from Michael shortly, but the reason why I say this is there is no inspection contingency in New York like there is in New Jersey or Florida or other parts of the country. In other parts of the country, you sign a contract and then you have 2 weeks to complete your home inspection and then negotiate repairs or credits. And if there's no agreement, you have a right to cancel and walk away with your deposit. That's not how it works in New York. In New York, any due diligence, any inspection must be done prior to signing the contract. Otherwise, if you waive the inspection, you are agreeing to accept the condition in as-is condition subject to working appliances and systems, which you will have a right to test at your final pre-closing walkthrough 24 hours before the closing. Now, a lot of first-time home buyers are layman people. They're not going to be able to see what's behind the walls or through the pipes or notice a leak or know if their HVAC is, has, a faulty compressor. Those type of things, you would want to make sure that you hire a home inspector. So I had a client who was kind of wavering on whether or not to set up a home inspection. First of all, for houses, I would almost 100% of the time say you should absolutely get a home inspection before you sign the contract. For co-ops or condos, it is optional. And the reason being is that the unit owner or the seller maintains everything within the 4 walls. So fixtures, appliances, systems, which include plumbing, heating and cooling, and electrical. But anything in between the walls or in between the the floors falls on the board or the management company or the association. So the reason why it's important to note is because it's buyer beware, meaning buyer has a duty to inspect. Otherwise, you cannot come back later in time and sue the seller or hold them liable, for not disclosing upfront, to you. It's your duty to inspect. Many a times we have negotiated a repair credit, or I've added repairs to the contract before the buyer signs, which lots of sellers are amenable, to doing. And this way, the buyer is protected and knows exactly what they're purchasing.
Yes, I agree with you. Inspections, they're so important. And we'll hear more from Mike on why they're so important.
Exactly.
And Talia, I just want to say that, I've worked with you on many deals, and you're just like me and the Sara Golan team. You're respectfully aggressive. Like, you get back to like my clients right away, and you're just so attentive. You answer back like so quickly via text. And I think that's what a client wants in their attorney. A lot of attorneys are not like that. I've worked with them in the past, where they don't get back to you until the next day. And time is money, especially in a real estate deal. You want to get to that closing line as fast as possible. So
and I always say, the pillars of my practice are speed, trust, communication, and responsiveness. Okay. So for me, as Sandy mentioned, the sooner that we get into contract and the sooner we get to the closing table, the less issues arise and the more secure your deal is. And then communication and responsiveness, it's just all about transparency and making sure that you're, in the loop and you're involved every step of the way. That's why it's really important as a team that we all work together and we're on the same page, because we facilitate, a smooth, efficient, and successful closing for you so that you walk away really happy, very satisfied, and an excited new homeowner. So,
and until it's all about timing, especially to get to the contract signing, because until the contract is signed, there could be another buyer that comes in and offers the seller more money, and then you get into a bidding war, and it's very stressful. So I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, listen, it's my job to make, to get you to sign the contract as soon as possible before any other offer comes in, which has happened. It's happened where you stall on signing the contract. You should sign the contract within 3 to 5 business days.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's why, I start my due diligence on day one, so I'll reach out to management as soon as I have the deal sheet and begin my due diligence and my board minute review and everything else so that it doesn't lag and we have enough information, to feel confident to sign the contract. Absolutely.
Especially if you're not paying asking price and the seller is giving you a price reduction, you have to sign that right away. Away. Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
Next, we're going to go to Sara Golan from the Sara Golan team at SERHANT. Hi, Sara.
Hi, Sandy. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I love all the responses and all the information that we're receiving tonight, and thank you all for being on here, to all our sponsors.
All right, Sara, we're going to jump into it. What is working for buyers right now?
I think the number one thing that's working for buyers right now is how well prepared they are in the process. And it starts really with having those conversations with their agents and vetting their agents to know who's really representing them. So representation is key, having someone on their side to negotiate and give them guidance throughout the process, someone who's an expert in the neighborhood that they're purchasing in. So I think the more informed buyers are the ones that are winning those bidding wars that Talia is mentioning, being prepared, having not just a pre-approval, but working with a lender who has already given the file to an underwriter. So all their financials are fully underwritten and they know what they're qualified for. They know how much they can put down. They know what their monthly payment based on a scenario on the purchase price. They're well prepared. And when they see a property, they have an agent by there to be aggressive enough, respectfully aggressive, as Sandy puts it, that's going to get in touch with the selling agent, ask all the right questions regarding due diligence, and really get ahead of it. So when we're presenting offers, we're not lowballing, we're not disrespecting the sellers. We're knowing the market and knowing what type of offer to present, what concessions we can ask for. So this all starts with picking the right team to represent the buyers.
I agree with you. You want to make sure that they have expertise in selling in the neighborhood, because that
means
they're connected with other agents as well in that neighborhood. You can negotiate, they can negotiate better for you, for sure.
One of the things that Sandy and I, what we do at the very beginning of the year, we reach out to all our lender partners or attorney partners, and we ask them the questions like, how many applications are they taking, or clients reaching out? So we kind of gauge it based on how competitive the market will be, especially in an industry where there's a lack of real housing inventory at this time, and the property is sitting on the market. It's either they're overpriced and the sellers are not realistic, or they have agents that are advising them. I'm not sure the seller's agent. I know Sandy and we represent both sides. We see what's in the seller's minds, and we know how to advise our buyers because we've been on both sides. We've also owned properties and bought and sold ourselves, so we have that knowledge, and we have those inside conversations with the other side, the selling side.
And I think working with a buyer's agent is so important because when you have a listing price, that's not the actual
Mhm.
value of the home, right, Val?
Right.
Sarah, so explain that why it's so important to work with a buyer's agent to help you, put in the right offer. Because sometimes the listing agent will undervalue the property to get as many buyers in as possible.
It's a strategy. You know, some listing agents, they like to create bidding wars by pricing lower than the actual value of a home. And what two things that does when they is a bidding war, they show their sellers like, look, I've done such a great job, without really informing the seller and say, these are where the comps are. We could have priced higher. So they come out looking like this superstar selling above the asking, when in actuality, they're selling right where the market is. So I think being super updated with market conditions and comps and looking and doing the research in certain neighborhoods, that helps you to price accurately. If you get all the notifications on Street Easy to see what went into contract, what's being listed, what's coming soon, and the properties that are closing and at the price point and price per square foot, and you're well aware, I think you'll be able to price and inform your buyer on the type of offers they should be making, so they're not coming in and lowballing the offer.
And we're also well connected that we know the other agents that we're working with, and
Yes.
they know that we know what we're doing, and they want to do the deal with us. So they're more eager to tell us, hey, some of them, maybe
Yeah.
client should offer this number, and then we win the bidding war. Or
Yeah.
last year, remember, we won two, and it was like 30 bids, and we won it because we have a strategy. We won't say it, but we have a special strategy that we put in to win it, to win the bid, and we won it. So yeah, a lot of stuff goes on in the back end. I have to tell you, with the relationship between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. It's sales on the back end as well as it is, in the front end. So
Yeah, there really is that conversation to be had. And I know years ago when Sandy and I did a deal together, it was because, we didn't really know each other, but I do know that Sandy is a true professional. If you really look her up, she's number one in her market. She's number one. She comes up as the top agent in East Williamsburg and Williamsburg. So when I had a client that was shopping in her neck of the woods, and I reached out to her, and she already knew, because she's also so diligent that she would look up each agent, know their track record, know something about them. So it breaks the ice when you have these conversations. We've come across so many buyers agents that don't show up to the property. They don't call us. They don't ask any type of questions. Their buyers show up unannounced. We do the full tour. We give them everything about the property just to drop them back into the hands of an agent who doesn't even follow up, who's not responsive. 3 days go by, you don't get an email with feedback or they're interested. And, ethically, we cannot reach out to that buyer, even if that buyer gave us their information. We rely on competent buyer's agents. And most often we're doing a bulk of the work, and it takes a lot of property and do the buy side and sell side and give someone else a commission. But when we are the buyer's brokers, we do our homework and we inform our clients so that time doesn't go by from the time we present an offer, where we continue to negotiate. If there's some movement stops in that offer process, we go back to the parties and say, you just don't let the ball drop. You just have to keep the conversation going.
thank you. All right. Give us an example of a prepared buyer and how that led to a strong result.
So I've had so many cases where buyers come to me and they want to get a good deal, right? Or they're getting advice from their family and they come out and they see these properties. It's really my job to give them that advice. I had a buyer, young couple, they were shopping in Williamsburg and they were putting in offers thinking that they can do it on their own. And then they decided to hire a buyer's agent. And one of the things I think the hang up was, in our market climate, we have to give a buyer's agreement. And it basically says that you have to pay the broker a commission. And so sometimes that can turn off buyer's agents. What I did was reassure them that, look, I'm going to go to bat for you. You don't have to worry about the buyer broker fee. We're going to negotiate it all into the deal. And that's exactly what we did. I presented a great offer, negotiated a fee. The buyer was super happy. We had to waive some contingencies, but in waiving the contingency, it was a mortgage contingency that we had to waive. But I knew that they were well qualified. I spoke with their lender. I know they can get the deal done. So all I did was ask the seller side just for a little bit more time. And we were able to close that transaction successfully. And not only did they have to pay a buyer broker fee, We got into bidding war we were 1 out of 10 bids, and we closed on the property. So that was a great success story for my clients.
Thank you, Sarah. Talking about buyers' commissions,
Hmm.
I think a lot of the buyers have a misconception that, like you were saying, they have to pay buyers' commission.
Yes.
But last year, how many of our buyers had to pay us a commission?
Zero.
You know why?
Zero.
Because we negotiated it with the seller.
Yes.
Even though the seller's agents were telling us, no, they're not going to pay you anything. We ignore that and we
Hmm.
still submit the offer and we get the seller to pay it. If, your agent should be able to, if they can't negotiate their own commission for themselves, how are they going to negotiate for you? Right?
Yeah.
That's simple.
And oftentimes we get the full fee because when you go out there and you go to a doctor, you want the best. It's your health, right? You want the one who can figure out the solution if you're sick. It's the same thing in real estate. If you're hiring a broker, you want to have someone, it's your money. You're spending a lot of money. This is the biggest purchase of your life as a homeowner. And you want the person who's going to make sure that you're positioned well and a person who can negotiate well for you. And that's exactly what we do.
Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna go to Mike, home inspector, a federal. Hi,
Hello,
Mike.
everybody.
Hi. So inspections. Give us an understanding of a report that gave the buyer confidence.
All right. Well, first thing to do is when I do an inspection is I look at what's called the big six, or what I call the big six. I look at the electrical, the plumbing, the heating, the structure, the roof, and the termites. I look at the cosmetic things and the safety issues, but my concern, as well as yours, is going to be the money issues, which is those 6 things. It's the heart of the house. Alrighty. We run waters, we run the heat, the air conditioning, we see the conditions of them, we see how old they are, see how long they have left, see if they've been abused. Sort of like when you buy a car from a young person. You don't want to buy it from a young person because you know he abused the hell out of it. So you want to get it from like the old granny had it, that maintained it all the time. So same thing with a house. You want to have somebody that does the due diligence in regards to taking care of the house. We look at the roof. We want to know how many layers there are. We want to know how old it is. We look for structural problems. We look for moisture problems. Moisture problems seem to be the biggest thing that's been going on more than anything else, whether it be coming from an adjacent building or a lot, roof, or even when you were talking about condos before, you can get moisture coming in from the outside walls, which obviously can cause problems either with can cause structural problems, it cause mold problems, health problems. Don't mind you, I take pictures of everything, and I do get reports out there quickly, 24 to 48 hours after we do the inspection, so that way you don't get, you don't have the chance of something being, somebody outbid you for the house quick enough. We're in, we're out. We explain to the buyers everything that has to do with the house in regards to, how to maintain, where the emergency stuff is. We tell everybody, always ask as many questions you want during the inspection, so that way we can all figure out what's going on. I know a lot of people are, skittish whether or not to bring other people with them, like uncles or aunts or friends that are into certain types of business, whether they're plumbers or whatnot. I always say the more eyes, the better. I'm working for you. I'm working for, we want to make sure that this house is good for you. And as well as the reports are explained properly to not only the buyer, but to the realtor and the seller, as well as the lawyers. Main reason is I used to make big, thick inspection papers and reports. And it was like worst thing in hell for the lawyers. The lawyers used to sit there sometimes call me Mike. Get rid of all the fluff. I just want to know what's going on with this damn thing. So I would pretty much, I show all the pictures and I tell what's on with the house, but I also give the key points of what should be addressed, whether it be before you buy it or after you buy it, what everybody calls that honey-do list. So that way after they buy the house, they figure out what they have to do when they get in it. So.
Okay. What are some common issues that can be addressed without killing a deal?
I mean, it's not a, like I said, when it has to be that 6. I know a lot of people when they walk into a house, oh my God, there's holes in the walls. Oh my God, the floors need to be redone. Oh my God, look, your main concern is to make sure that those 6 things are working. All right, and even then, they don't have to be working at optimum levels. It's something that they're quick fixes. Like let's say it's a boiler that the emergency switch doesn't work. They shut it off. I mean, that's simple. It's just a switch part. Sometimes, the water heaters are, have a little age on them. I mean, they're not expensive to replace. It all becomes, obviously, when it all said and done, it's all about the almighty dollar. Whether or not you could afford to fix certain things, as well as what if somebody's selling the house, whether they could fix the house stuff to make it, appeasing to the buyer. I mean, it's the one, the termites are not a big deal. Here in New York, we have what's called the subterranean termite, which means they live in the ground. It takes many years to create any type of serious damage. And 3 out of every 4 houses get termites within the first 100 years. So, and obviously New York houses last longer than 100 years. So it's not more or less if you get them, it's more or less when you get them. So all really would need is just a treatment. Sort of like if you get sick, you go to the doctor, you get a shot. The house needs the shot. So I know a lot of people when they see, oh my God, it's got termites. I don't want to. You got to worry about. No, you don't have to worry about the house. It's something easy to take care of. That's on that aspect. Same thing. Let's say the radiators aren't working. Oh, there's a big problem with the heating system. No, it probably needs to be that radiators need to be either bled or drained. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot of people. A lot of people overreact to a lot of different things, and I really feel that when you walk in there, it's more or less just take everything in. Let everybody do their due diligence. Don't jump to it automatically, but let the people that you're hiring work for you. And most of the time, those won't be killed because it's never really blown out of proportion. It's never really, who blows it out of proportion is usually somebody that has no clue what's going on in the house, and the buyer is talking to, like a friend of something else at work, and they tell, oh my God, you really got to worry about your windows. It's really expensive, but it's something you could dress down the line. It's I guess it's more or less if I guess it's more or less gut feelings when more than anything else when it comes to somebody buying a house. It's just more of us sitting there telling you if it's right for you or not.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think like when you come when there's obstacles like that and something is wrong with the house and you have a good buyer's agent, they have somebody in their network that can help you, resolve that issue and either like get you an estimate, and then Talia can try to find you, right, get you a credit to resolve that issue, so.
It's funny that you mentioned networks because I always tell the buyers never to lose the real estate's phone number after you finish buying the house because you have a big network. You have a lot of people behind you. So that way, let's say floors need to be done. Rather than cold call somebody and sit there and say, look, I want you to come here and take a look at my floors. It's good to tap into your network because they don't want to disappoint you because you're going to refer them. So they want to make sure that they get the good price. They do the right job for you. It's not like a hit and run, and the buyer gets the most out of it.
Yeah, because when we refer, we're putting our names on the line. So that person has to be really good and trustworthy to recommend them. So.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go to Chris from ArcNoma. He's our architectural and design partner. Hi, Chris.
How's it going, everybody? Good evening. So I am a licensed architect here in New York State. I also previously worked as a real estate agent in the past, so I kind of know what to look for when you're going into a property. We do work with buyers at the same time as they're looking at a space. We'll join them and sort of just walk through the space, itemize any code options. But the biggest thing I think that we look for is value add. I think now we're not just looking for return on investment, we're looking for what else can we add to a property in addition to what you might typically look at. So we kind of started to set up a presentation with different types of projects that we worked on. And so we'll share a little bit about that.
Thanks.
I believe everyone can now see the screen. Okay. So thanks again to Sandy and Sarah for bringing us on. This collaboration is fresh and I'm excited for what the future has for all of us. A little bit about our team. So we are all living here in Brooklyn and Queens on our team. So I am, like I mentioned, the licensed architect. We have Cindy and Ishak working with us. They also grew up in Brooklyn and Queens, respectively. But what we're looking to talk about is value add. I know, Sandy, you had some questions, so I kind of organized it in the same way. So
perfect. All right, take it away, Chris.
Awesome. So securing a great home was the first question that we had. How do we provide benefit to a potential buyer when it comes to securing a great home? So we brought in some photos of a recent project we completed. This was a finished upgrade. This was actually their childhood home. So they had lived in this for the past 30 years. Now we're looking at this at a sort of rental standpoint. What can we do with these sort of apartments that have been vacant for the past 3 years? We do the same thing for condo projects, trying to showcase some of this. What is possible with interior renovation? This property was in East Flatbush. Recently got rented, 2 3-bedrooms with 2 baths on each floor, and they kept one of the units as their sort of apartment for when they come into the city. So they recognized that they won't have this property, they didn't know what they could do with it, and we kind of showed them through the architectural route of planning and interior design how they could get a lot of rental income off of it. They're completely filled up now, and we also took the secondary approach of designing their entire backyard. This was all done with typical Home Depot materials, 1x6s, 1x3s. And as we move into sort of the next segment of design, which comes in after pretty much the snow that we've dealt with recently, we are thinking about how we can do it from a landscape standpoint. So we did add the renders to this packet to show what this would look like in the future. So we're envisioning something relatively lush. It's always a back and forth when you have a home owner that doesn't live necessarily in New York City, but still wants to create something nice for the tenants. So it's kind of a balance of what type of vegetation we're adding, but this is the exact space. This came directly from our model. that we created for this project, and we integrate everything. So dimension everything out, showcase that you can actually do this through code, and yeah, go through the landscape design with them. This is one way that you can add value just simply by doing a finish upgrade. How do we add value in other ways? So as you move into a property, I think this is one of the things that's kind of looked down on, or that isn't approached as often as it probably should be. What are you going to do with your property after you purchase it? So usually you have to take into consideration, what is my mindset when I go into this property? So do I think of this as my forever home, or do I think of this as a starter home that I would want to do sales for in the future? That all changes how you're going to approach the building. So for this property, we looked at it as a rental income for the owners. This was actually the previous client's father's childhood home. It's a brownstone located in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And what we did for this building was convert the existing single family into a multifamily. This is going to be 5 units, full garden floor, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, with access to the full backyard that we're redoing. We are adding a roof deck at the top of the building and adding a terrace above the existing sunroom. So this is all coming based off of our analysis of the site. The owner, after finishing the previous interior design project, wanted us to walk through the space and asked us, what can we do with this? So this project currently is in permitting. We have some renders as to what the backyard is going to look like for the space, and we are currently working on which finishes we want to do for the interior. So this is the backyard space. This is also, everything's up to code. We are doing planters here. We are doing a sunken heating area for the garden floor apartment. This is what it would look like. We are reusing the entire structure. We're not changing too much because we recognize that cost is always a concern, especially when you're going into a new building. This is another view, sort of looking towards the buildings in the background, just understanding what is possible. Another thing that we're looking at right now is with City of Yes being a huge change to the zoning resolution, ADUs are now accessible for single and 2-family homes. So that's another thing that we're currently analyzing, just to see how we can make great cottages in the backyard for new buyers. Usually one of the things long-term you consider is that you might have a parent that's looking to live with you, but not necessarily in your property, or a college student in the future that would want their own first, apartment, but not living, with their parents anymore. So these are things that City of Yes is pushing, that we are analyzing and just making sure that we understand what the complications are for this. So if that's a property you currently have, we can definitely assist in sort of telling you what you can do with it. This is something we are exploring now. It is how the layout of a building can change, and it can improve what you think a property will actually be worth. This is an existing commercial with residential units above in Crown Heights. So there's an existing garage that's part of the building itself, and the client or the potential buyer came up to us and asked us, what can we do with this? So by looking at zoning information and tax lots, we found out that you can separate the lot that is existing into 3 individual lots and actually build 2 other buildings where their garage is. So value add, I would say this is probably as close as you're going to get to it. So we did also sort of think about how this space is going to feel from a living standpoint. So we did some sort of tests early with materials just to see what the space would feel like. Another view. And then one of the things that we analyzed was, how is this building going to reflect the context in and around it? So we started to look at the rendering for what this building could look like. It would be a 3-story townhouse where you would be able to have 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, cellar access, and a kitchen off of the entryway. That's
beautiful. Beautiful work. Thank you, Chris. Did you want to touch upon anything else?
I think that's good. It's a Q&A, but I'll pass the baton.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna go on to Jose from Lumi Cleaning Services. Hi, Jose.
Hey, Sandy, thank you for having me here. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Sarah. And I love to be part of this holistic approach. So yeah, my name is Jose. We provide exceptional cleaning service in the New York City area for residential and commercial. And when we talk about cleaning, we're talking about spotless, shining, and smelling fresh.
Nice. So Jose, tell us an example of a client experience where a move-in clean made a real difference. Deep clean. We always say deep clean before you move in.
So it always makes a difference because, when the clients reach out to us, it's because it's very important for them. But I'm going to say a specific situation. It was an emotional situation where a client reached out to us, a very generous lady. She had paid for her sister's move-in clean. Her sister was in a shelter for a while with her daughter. She spent almost a year there, her sister. And after our team, they went in to do this move-in, a deep clean. They made the bathroom shine. Kitchen was glowing, smelled fresh. And when her sister walked in the apartment and saw everything just spotless, shining, smelling fresh, everything very nice, she just dropped down and shed in tears. It was very emotional, but it makes our cleaners feel good because, cleaning is not easy. and that's what make the cleaners like continue cleaning. Very emotional moment. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Give about the areas of a home that most impact comfort and peace of mind.
Yeah, so just imagine you're walking in a new home. Sometimes it's been through a lot of walkthroughs, right? Sometimes it's not new, and everything like once it's clean, it brings that peace of mind. You knowing that everything is clean, it brings that peace of mind. So, the bathroom is very important for the majority of the people. When you see those tiles shining, when you walk in the kitchen, like for a lot of women, if the kitchen is not glowing, they're like, no, I don't like this apartment, right? Or no, I don't like this house. So, when you have those stainless steel in the kitchen and you see it's been polished, it looks not only new, but it's shiny. It's a major difference. And the windows, right? Like the windows. Imagine you drinking a coffee in the morning and you're just looking outside the windows. Most windows, they're dirty on the outside. Sometimes we're able to flip the windows and clean them on the outside. And when you go into the space and you see the floors that it's clean and it has a natural look, it's impactful.
Yes, thank you. I have actually a client who got a marble countertop, and I was like, make sure that you use the special marble cleaner solution, because if you don't, it's ruined. It's ruined. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jose, please share the special promotion you have for everyone today.
Yeah, special promotion. So if you move in, we're giving out a $50 voucher where you can use it for your move in, a deep clean, and you can use it, let's say, if you live around, let's say, 30-minute radius from Manhattan, right? If it's a huge house, we'll go out, a little bit further. And we have also, if you live in Brooklyn or Manhattan and you're going in and you're moving in, we're going to mount your TV by a professional.
Nice. That's like a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're giving it out for your clients and everyone that's moving in here.
Nice. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Nice. Okay, so we are at the end of the seminar. Does anyone have any questions for the panelists?
Hey, Sandy. Hi, everyone.
Hi, how
Well,
are
for being here. I really value the information that you gave everyone. So this question is probably for Roger. So currently I'm working with a few HDFC buyers. So I kind of just would like to know, what is the most important thing that they should know when it comes to buying into an HDFC co-op? Like, would it be like eligibility as far as their income and their assets go? Like, what would be the most important thing for them to focus on or to know before they buy into a property like this?
I think you just nailed it, Amy. Every HDFC co-op has their own specific eligibility.
Sure, just ask.
So I would say that, and the onus oftentimes is put back on the agent. It's to really understand what that individual co-op's requirements are and to ensure that that client or that buyer is eligible for it. I would say 80%, if not a little bit higher, of banks do not lend on HDFC co-ops. US Bank does lend on HDFC co-ops. So we don't have any specific requirements for HDFC from a borrower perspective. From a building perspective, you want to try and get ahead of that building review as early as possible. So if you know that your client is entertaining an HDFC co-op purchase, speak to the lender, work with the attorney to gather the documents from the building's management company in order to get ahead of that building review. So, basic or standard documents like your budget, your insurance, your financials are a good place to start. A management company contact is always helpful. My team can reach out to get a questionnaire completed to get ahead of that review. You don't have to wait for the buyer to be in contract. A lot of banks will do that, which is delay the process, right? And ultimately, a bad decision could derail the entire purchase if the building is not up to code or up to the bank's requirements, which Talia touched on before. Building approvals can kill a deal, regardless of how well qualified the borrower may be. So get ahead of the building review and then get ahead of the co-op's requirements from an eligibility perspective for the buyer.
Yeah, I would love to add to that because I'm actually working on 2 HDFC co-op deals right now for clients. Main thing is obviously income restrictions, right? Depending on if they're purchasing a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, family household median income, all of that is, laid out in the HDFC requirements. Secondly, there is normally a subsidy grant that is either assigned from the seller, to the buyer or paid off. That is a huge consideration that you need to negotiate and find out from the seller, because that subsidy grant that may have been issued issued in the amount of 40K or 50K or 60K at the time that the seller bought it, we would need to obtain an assignment of that subsidy, because that balance would then transfer over. It's in second lien position to the lender's first mortgage position, but that transfers to the new buyer. So that's very important in a negotiation with the listing agent as to what's the balance of the subsidy. Is the seller going to pay it off at the time of closing, or are we assuming that subsidy? And then also a flip tax calculation. So it depends on how long you live in that property. Your buyers are definitely going to want to know that, because if they sell within the first 2 years, a lot of times 50% of their profit is paid over to the co-op. Generally, they have to live there over 9.5 years in order for there to be a zero flip tax. So I always say 10 years, and it's a scale, it's a sliding scale. So depending on the amount of years that they live there, that flip tax is going to eat into their net proceeds and their profit. So that's also very important. And then the last thing I wanted to say, flip tax, subsidy, what else there? Oh, and then obviously primary residence. They can't sublet. It has to be, their primary residence, and they have to resell it to a primary residence buyer as well. So those are very important top factors. And you definitely want to work with an attorney that knows HDFC co-ops, because there's a lot of rules and regulations surrounding it.
Thank you. Thank you, Talia. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Amy, for asking. Anyone else?
I have a question for Chris.
Sure.
What renovations usually add the most value, let's say, for first-time buyers in your experience?
Yeah, I think you can't go wrong with a finish upgrade. I think that's one thing that's super easy to do, depending on what you do. If you don't change any plumbing, any layout configurations, it can also be a very quick permitting process, and it can really just change the entire appearance of a space. I know there's some real estate agents that actually push for that before they put it on the market. I think that's one option. One thing that we're looking at is sort of going back to townhouses. So if you start to convert backwards, if you have an existing multifamily and you want to make it a larger townhouse, that's another thing that seems to be adding quite value, because everybody's looking for their first time home. And so if you can separate buildings kind of into individual homes within the existing shell, that is something we're seeing a lot of people explore.
That's super cool to know.
Sarah, are you there? Sarah? No. Okay. Anyone else have a question? No? Okay. So lightning round. We're actually doing excellent on timing today, guys. That's great. Give me one sentence. Best advice for buyers right now. Roger.
Get your roadmap, get pre-approved. Whether you're buying this year, this month, or 2 or 3 years from now, it is never a bad time to figure out how you qualify, if you qualify, and how to get to that point if you're not there now.
Yeah. But yeah, also if you need to fix your credit or build your credit, right?
Exactly.
Get ready, get prepared. Know how much down payment you need, right? How much you need to save.
Yeah.
And what else?
I mean, that's really what I would touch on, right? Every credit profile is different. Everyone has different credit scores. Everyone has a different asset profile. People are looking for different property types. Yeah. Understanding what your individual scenario looks like. There is never a wrong time for that. Don't worry about the credit pulls. Credit bureaus allow for 3 pulls in 30 days with little to no negative impact to your scores. So talk to lenders, get pre-approved, figure out your roadmap so that you are well prepared for whenever that time comes for you to actively shop.
Yes, because you need that pre-approval letter to put in the offer. And like I said before, timing is everything. So if you like that property and it just hit the market, there's going to be other buyers that are going to want it. And if you're not prepared, they're not going to move forward with your offer, because in order for an offer to be valid, you have to submit a proof of funds, which is your mortgage pre-approval. If you're financing or if you're paying all cash, you need to show recent asset statements, or if you're doing a little bit of both, you need to show a combo of both. Sarah, did you want to add anything on value add? I know you do a lot of renovations. You do we work with the condo conversions, townhouse,
I think for buyers in this market, they have to work with someone who's an expert, not someone, or even if they're working with someone who just came in the market, make sure that person is working with a reputable broker or an agent like Sandy and myself, because we've been through this process so many times and we're able to help with design, with construction, with finding the right home. And so we have a whole team on this Zoom right now, and everyone is a true partner and a true professional. So I would say one takeaway, work with professionals.
Thank you. Anyone else on the panelists want to give one sentence, best advice? Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. If you want a free one-on-one consultation, very personalized one, please let us know. If you want to speak directly to one of our experts that you heard tonight, just send us a direct message after the event, and we're happy to work with you. We'll email you all of our contact information so you have it, and also a copy of this Zoom presentation, the Zoom seminar. So thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Very
everyone.
informative.
Thank
you.
you
Awesome.
all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.